Welcome to another trip down the Bourbon Road with your hosts, Jim and Mike. So grab a glass of your favorite bourbon and kick back.
Hey, this is Big Chief, and you're listening to the Bourbon Road. You know what I love to pour in my old fashions is a little maple syrup. Can't be just any maple syrup. It has to be from Seldom Seen Farms up in Ohio. He takes bourbon barrels, pours his syrup in there, and ages it for 6 to 9 months, making for some delicious syrup that you could pour on pancakes. You could pour it on waffles, chicken and waffles like this fat guy likes. But seriously, you want to make a delicious cocktail with some maple syrup and not that old simple syrup. Check out seldomseenmaple.com. Pick up some stuff from there today. We'd appreciate it. So, you know, I'm on my Texas road trip, traveling down the country roads and stuff, and my truck brought me to Austin, Texas, one of my favorite cities of all times. And sure enough, I drove right into a distillery. I'm sitting down with Chris Seals from Still Austin, one of their founding fathers, and I got a whole bunch of whiskey in front of me. He's a Texas boy himself, just like me. Chris, welcome to the Bourbon Road.
Thank you, Mike. I'm glad to be here. And thank you. I'm so glad that you came to visit Austin.
Yeah, this is a beautiful city. First, they got my favorite football team of all time, right? The Texas Longhorns. I know, listeners, you don't like them, but I love them. So I'm a
Longhorn as well, Brad. So.
One of the greatest streets in America to listen to live music, 6th Street.
Yeah. There's a lot of great places around Austin now, too. It's spread out, even beyond 6th Street.
There used to be a show called Austin City Limits.
Yeah, Austin City Limits is great.
Great show. Still going today.
Yes.
I think it was one of the longest running shows of all time.
We even have one of the biggest music festivals, Austin City Limits, ACL Music Festival. Yep. Yeah.
And now it's becoming a mecca for whiskey because of you.
I don't know about that. We're trying to do our part. Live up to some pretty incredible whiskeys around the United States right now.
There is. It's a booming still. It's not stopping. And fans, listeners out there, we are inside the distillery. We're in the tasting room today. There's just a wall of whiskey behind Chris. We'll make sure we post some photos of that. But man, we got whiskey in front of us, but we also have something that Jim likes, and I know he's going to be super jealous of this. It's a one-of-a-kind gin. So tell me about it.
Yeah, so like our gin is a little bit unusual. A lot of whiskey lovers are not gin drinkers, but almost every whiskey bar has to have a gin cocktail because there's some gin drinker that comes in. And so one of the things that we did early on, we had we're very community-based in everything we do. And our people are a big part of Still Austin. And we had a distiller, Allie Block, and she was basically working the night shift, making bourbon. And she really, she came to us and said, I would like to make a gin. And I was like, well, Allie, actually, we're a whiskey distillery. We don't make gin. And she's like, well, what if I made a gin that whiskey lovers love? I was like, well, that's pretty good. That sounds pretty good. Let's give it a shot. And so that kind of ended up being sort of the inspiration for our gin. And what we did, everything that we make it ourselves from grain to glass. And all of our grains are not only are they all grown by family-owned farms here in Texas, but they are Texas grain varieties, which is a slight difference. It's not just the terroir of like what it tastes like if it's grown in Texas, but it's the white corn that we have here is the kind that's like in our corn chips and corn tortillas and kind of the backbone of like our Tex-Mex culture, as compared to like the yellow corn that you have in, the Ohio Valley that makes great Kentucky bourbon.
Yeah.
But it has a little different taste because it's kind of our grain varieties. And here we grow a kind of rye called Elbon. That's kind of sweet and spicy. It's delicious. It's not the kind most distilleries that in the Kentucky area that I think primarily use a Bruzy is the variety of rye that they like. And it grows really well, kind of up in Canada and kind of more northern climates. But we've got Elbon down here, and Elbon it's just a slightly different flavor. And so we distilled a rye whiskey that is the base of our gin. And so instead of putting juniper at the center of the botanicals, we let the rye shine. So I'll let you taste it here.
It'd still fool me that the juniper's not in there.
Oh, there is juniper in there for sure.
Because I can.
Oh, of course.
I've cut down some cedar trees in my life.
You can smell it. Yeah, to be called gin, it has to have juniper in it. But the botanicals are made to pair well with the rye. So like the rye is kind of, like I said, it's sweet and spicy. So the sweetness is really balanced by 3 citruses. So we've got orange. Obviously in Texas, we grow a lot of grapefruit. And a little bit of lemon. So those citruses kind of balance some of the sweetness. And then we really wanted to accentuate the spice of the rye with some spices that are pretty common to our food and beverage culture. And so a little bit of cinnamon, 2 types of cinnamon actually, and Jamaican allspice. So I'll let you guys taste it here and see what you think.
Cheers.
So.
When you said grapefruit, I get that grapefruit right there. That citrus, that really just sweet citrus from a grapefruit. That ruby red grapefruit that Texas is known for.
That's right.
Just delicious. Me and my brother actually had a long discussion about grapefruit cocktails and whiskey and how they pair great together. And
absolutely.
But this would be great with some grapefruit juice, I think.
Yeah, no, it makes a great, any of the like kind of classic, like a bee's knees, which is just honey and lemon and gin, or any other, like a Paloma.
I was going to say that.
Really quite nice.
That's one of Jim's favorite drinks, and that's something he would pour in there.
Yeah. Sorry, Jim, we're drinking without you, but we'll send some your way.
Yeah, he would appreciate that. He's a big gin guy. He calls that his secondary whiskey.
Yeah.
His other go-to is gin, where mine would probably be rum. But since I've been on the podcast, I've kind of snuck over to that gin a little bit, and barrel-aged gins. My palate, as you get older, your palate changes a lot, and you have a lot more appreciation, I think, for fine spirits like this right here. And you find out that there's a Paloma out there that you could drink, or that bee's knees or something like that, and it beautiful gin. And a lot of distilleries will do that because they can put it in a bottle before anything else comes out, right?
Certainly. It does come out a little bit faster. It's about a week from the time that the farmer brings the grains here until the gin is ready to bottle. So it's a lot faster. But it's the same craft and everything being from grain to glass.
Now, we kind of walked through your distillery really fast. Well, I didn't walk up that stairwell very fast to see the still and to taste some whiskey that's running.
It's kind of steep going back there.
Yeah. But let's talk about your still itself real fast before we get into the history of Still Austin.
Sure.
What's that? What you name that still, that big old thing you got in there?
So our still's name is Nancy, and she's named after the lead character in the film, The Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. And so I'll give you one guess how tall she is. She's a very tall lady. She's made, a lot. We have really embraced column distillation. Back when my dad and I were first starting the distillery, we had a vision that we were going to be a big pot still operation, and that's kind of I don't even know why. I just think that that's what we thought was the best, and. We have a master distiller, Michael Delevante. He's a Jamaican white guy, very funny. He opened Appleton Rum
really?
In the I guess that was like the early 60s in their current facility. Designed it, and he's worked at over 100 distilleries. He's a very, very knowledgeable guy. And he's, to our knowledge, the oldest distiller working in North America today.
Really?
Yeah. Mike's a very fun, very, very, very interesting guy.
And they said he's working a night shift tonight.
No, he's pretty well retired these days, but he knows a little bit about making spirits. And we asked him to help us with the design of a still that would be able to isolate and bring out the flavor from our Texas grain. That was really important to us. And Mike helped us to work with Forsyths in Scotland. Forsyths is a still manufacturer. We're a little different. Most of the column stills in the United States are made by Vendome. They've been doing it for a long time. A lot of tradition, a lot of focus on quality, and we like them a lot. And have very high respect for Vendome. But we felt like Forsyths may be able to help us a little bit more. They're based in Scotland. They're a little older than Vendome, and they just have a reputation for being able to make a still that is able to first to just withstand the test of time, the quality in how it's made, and then also the precision in the design and our ability to be able to bring out some of the flavor, like I said, flavor from our local grain. Typically with a typical column still, there's usually 3 or 4 rectification trays at the top, and those 3 or 4 trays, they're a little warmer down below and a little cooler up above. And so different distillates will collect on those 3 or 4 trays. But rather than having 3 or 4, Nancy has 12. And that gives us a lot more control over the quality of the spirit, so we can really isolate and bring out the flavor from our Texas grain.
Nice. Well, you've done poured a straight bourbon whiskey, a Texas straight bourbon whiskey at that, right?
That is correct.
Aged a little over 2 years.
That's right.
In the hot Texas sun.
It is hot in the Texas sun, yes. We call our straight bourbon the Musician. And there's a musician that's on the front of the label. The musician is actually painted by the Texas state artist, or a person who's been the Texas state artist, Mark Burkhart, one of our local artists. We work entirely with local artists for all of our labels. And it's a great way of us being able to support our community and bring out like the things that they're really good at and kind of show off their work. I think he did a beautiful job with Musician on the front, and obviously Austin, live music capital of the world, a little music connection.
Now I see that bird on almost everything here. What's the bird?
The bird is a very unusual bird. So you see that it's technically a tanager, and it's a red bird. You don't see it very often. It stands out, right?
Yeah.
It's very pretty. Almost everybody is drawn to that bird, but they don't know quite why. I think that's kind of it's a symbol that Mark painted into the Musician, and it ended up becoming the symbol of Still Austin. So we didn't say, hey, Mark, paint a bird. He painted a songbird so that you would know that the woman in the painting is singing. And it kind of became our symbol. And I think that it's kind of like a lot of things. You don't necessarily go on this journey of starting a authentic craft whiskey distillery, and you have some idea in your mind of where that's going to go. But if you are really focused on quality, and you really try with everything that you do to be very authentic and bring out not only the natural flavor that comes from your place, but also give a sense of who you are as people, you end up kind of undertaking something that's bigger than just making a spirit. You're telling a story of a people and our values and what we love, and you depend on your own artists, and they end up becoming part of what becomes your story and your brand. And so the red bird is different. It's like Austin, our local slogan, keep Austin weird. And we really value what makes you different.
Sure.
And you can kind of get a little sense of that, a hint of it on our label.
So what's the mash bill on this right here?
Yeah, it's 70% white corn. It's 25% Elbon rye and 5% malted barley. And the malted barley, if you can believe it, is grown in Brady, Texas, not far from where you grew up.
Really?
That's right. And it's malted in Dallas at Tex Malt. So this is a little grain from close to home for you.
Yeah.
And we use probably one of the things I'll say that probably really does make this a bit different is we have a person on our team. We have two Nancys. We don't just have one. We have our still Nancy. We also have Nancy Fraley, and Nancy is she's our master nose and master blender, and she's very absolutely incredible woman. She's master blended for a lot of the Kentucky distillers. She's won a lot of awards for her whiskey, and to our knowledge, as a ghost blender, she's won more awards than anybody we know of.
Wow.
Worldwide. She's also trained under a 10th generation cognac maker. And she's what's considered a musketeer of Armagnac. It's one of these 12 people in the world that can master blend the oldest aged distilled spirit in the world, which is Armagnac, with nearly 1,000 years of tradition, as compared to just 200 in bourbon. So it's a bit older. And she brought to us a lot of techniques from France. And one of those is a slow water reduction. Slow water reduction is part of the technique that's used in cognac. And what it is where, normally in bourbon making, we put the whiskey in the barrel, put the barrel in the warehouse, and just forget about it, right? We'll leave it there, let it rest. Magic happens. 6-8 years later, we take it out, we water it down a little bit, and put it in a bottle. And that's it. And so that little step where you water it down a bit, we stretch that into years. And what we'll do is we'll open each barrel every month or two and add a little bit of water to the barrel. And what that does is it very slowly brings down the alcohol concentration while it's still maturing. When the alcohol concentration is high at the beginning of the maturation, you get more alcohol solubles coming out of the oak, like your oak tannin, say, for instance. But as you slowly bring that down and it moves to having more water than alcohol, then it tends to, extract from the oak more water solubles, like the oak sugars. And by doing that, little by little, very slowly and meticulously over time, every month or so, we add a new layer of flavor to our bourbon, and it tends to make it very soft, very well-rounded. It kind of takes you on a little journey from the nose all the way through to the finish. And it has this quality that we really like of finesse. And finesse is what every distiller aspires to create, because it can kind of gently tell a little story in what you taste. So that's kind of what makes ours a little bit different.
Very soft nose on this bourbon right here. It's still got that caramely, you can tell the corn's in there. Very floral, though, on this bourbon. I'm kind of shocked by that, of how much florals are in there and stuff. But, hey, cheers.
Cheers. Cheers. Oh, and I've also learned recently, whenever you cheers, and this is something that all your viewers will need to know, whenever you cheers, you must always do it with your left hand, never your right. And you must make eye contact when you clink.
When you clink. Really?
Or it's 7 years of bad sex. And I don't want that to happen to any of your listeners.
Nobody wants 7 years of bad sex. That's for sure.
Right.
That's for sure. None of our listeners want that.
A little tip from Austin, Texas.
Well, a lot of people think great tasting bourbon right here. That rye spice. Jim, once again, you're missing out, man. The rye spice. He's a rye guy. I'm a wheated guy. So, Jim, man, some gin and some whiskey. I promise I'm going to bring something back with me, though. Beautiful, beautiful bourbon. I can see why you guys are so hot right now. Everybody's wanting to get their hands on this throughout America. Very beautiful.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoy it.
Before we finish up this first half, when you were walking around, you said this almost didn't happen because your dad was the one that wanted to start a distillery, right? And
that's right.
Want to talk him out of it. Why don't you run us through that?
Yeah. So it was really my dad's idea, this entire thing. And I like I told you, I'm an economist. I used to do risk management. How bad can things get? That's what I got paid to figure out. And so when my dad came to me and said he wanted to start a craft whiskey distillery, I mean, like, it didn't take long for the wheels to start turning. And I was like, this is the worst idea that I've ever, I got paid to do feasibility studies for a living. This was going to be the worst risk, profile ever. And so, but my dad had recently retired. He was going through what I would consider to be a retirement crisis. He was very bored. And like I told you, he's driving my mom crazy. And so I could tell my dad wanted to spend time with me. And I love my dad. And I wanted to spend time with him too. And so I thought I would be really smart and suggest that we do a feasibility study on whether or not Austin could support a craft whiskey distillery. And I actually already knew the answer was no. They cannot, because I was so smart, and actually because I've done so many of these feasibility studies over the years that this may come as a shock to you and to a lot of your listeners, but 99% of good ideas are actually bad ideas. It's true.
Well, it depends on how much passion's behind that idea.
That's part of what shifts it. So
you can't factor that into it, right?
No, that can overcome a lot. And so I actually thought this was a bad idea, but I didn't see any reason to tell my dad that up front. I was like, let's study this. But like, what we're gonna need to do some market research. We're going to Kentucky.
Everybody goes to Kentucky. We're
going to Scotland.
Yeah.
We're going to visit a lot of distilleries, and Dad and I are going to drink a lot of whiskey together, and we are going to have a really good time, quote unquote, studying this. And then once we've had that time and my dad has settled into retirement and he's no longer driving my mom crazy, we're going to come to our senses and decide this is a terrible idea. And that's what I signed up for. And we did all that. We had a great time doing it. And then state laws in Texas changed, and that made it more feasible to open a craft whiskey distillery. So all of a sudden, we were more lucky than smart. And it really kind of changed things for us. And we thought, well, we kind of started to understand what it takes to start something. And it's obviously a major undertaking. It's not just the liquid. It's like you're telling this incredible story. And we felt like, why not us? So we threw some money in a hat and got started.
Yeah, I'm sure. That must have been a big old hat for sure. As I look around here, because I know what steels cost. You know what bottles cost. You know what grains cost, right? It takes a lot to get something like this started. So do you feel like today, looking back at that, do you like, damn, I was wrong?
I'm very proud to say that I'm often wrong. In fact, any economist that ever tells you that their forecast is right has a 100% chance of being wrong. And so I was very wrong about how successful Still Austin could be, and I couldn't be happier about that. And we've got, to be totally disclosing, we are community funded as well. So it's all local business people that have helped to invest in and build a beautiful distillery that can represent Austin and our place in the future of American craft whiskey. And everybody who works at the distillery owns part of it. And so it's very, as a result, we have the very best people because everybody, looks at this business as their own because it is. And they have a stake in it as well.
That's nice to hear and stuff that you guys went down that path. And actually, you thought it out and just didn't jump into it, right? Because you do hear those stories too of, hey, I'm just going to do this. But just to hear you and your dad went down that deal, and you probably didn't believe in him, but maybe your dad and you were really that kid, kind of college football. I always, there's some kids that just don't practice well. They don't show very well when they're doing practice or if they're trying to show their skills on the field until them lights come on. And then there's
Some clicks.
Something magical happens. Same thing with some musicians. You talk to them or you hear them play in a small room or in a private setting, and you're like, you're all right. But then they get up on that stage, and it's like a switch flips or something, and something happens, and it just comes out perfectly. And I'm always amazed at that. I'm like, wow, I didn't see that coming.
Absolutely.
And now you guys, I'm telling you, Chris, that you are the hot commodity right now out there in the whiskey world.
You're blowing my mind with that, hot commodity. I don't even know what you're talking about.
I told so many people I was coming to Still Austin, and they were like, "Man, you're so lucky. You got the best job ever."
You are all welcome to come to Still Austin, and we will take as good care of you as we do of Mike, 100%.
I have no doubt. Two great spirits, a gin. That's not the
it's
first
called
gin.
The Naturalist.
The Naturalist. Because she's kind of naked on there.
She's a naturalist, and there's a part of Austin actually that's a nude beach that you guys should visit while you're here.
What's that place called?
It's called Hippie Hollow.
Hippie Hollow. I might have been there before.
It's awesome.
That was a long time ago.
I'm not going to say a negative thing about it. But we got a very green culture here in Austin, and with our green belt, and it's been one of the greenest cities for a long, long time. And I felt like with all the botanicals that are in the gin, they're all painted into the painting on the front of the label. And we felt like the naturalist was kind of an archetype that almost everybody could identify with. She might be naked, but she's very, very much enjoying her natural environment.
Well, she's got that old apple of sin in her hand.
It's an orange. That is an orange of sin.
It is an orange?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. It's open for interpretation.
I guess it could be a peach also. Who knows?
We don't have any peaches in the mash bill, so I'm pretty sure it's going to be an orange, grapefruit, or it doesn't quite look like a lemon.
Yeah. Well, listeners, stick with me. Chris will be right back. We'll have some more laughs, drink some more whiskey. He's got 2 special whiskeys for the second half. I am super excited. We'll be right back. Listeners, you know what we love? We love some seldom seen farms from up in Ohio. Aged in bourbon barrels for 6 to 9 months, Kevin Hawley and his family, they've got 2,500 maple trees where they're taking that sap and they're boiling it down and making beautiful maple syrup. But what they really do special is they take used bourbon barrels, they put that maple syrup in there, they age it 6 to 9 months, like I said, they ship it out for you to taste in a cocktail, to taste on pancakes, waffles, whatever you want to use. It only takes about a half an ounce for a cocktail, though, and you replace that simple syrup with that. It's very beautiful. You can buy it by the case. You can buy it by a single bottle. They got the regular old maple syrup for you to use for your children, but that bourbon barrel aged maple syrup is simply delicious. You want to check out seldomseenmaple.com. Go ahead and purchase some today. You will not regret it. They have some candles on there. They've got maple cotton candy for those kids in your house. We'd appreciate it if you'd check them out. All right, listeners, we are back, and I got Chris Seals with me from Still Austin. He's got 2 great whiskeys in here. I'm trying to get him out. He's trying to go eat lunch on me. Man, he should take Big Chief with him, I think. I'm hungry.
We're going to a good place for lunch. And we tried to get you guys some barbecue, because we got La Barbecue is like one of my favorites here in town, but just takes time. So now you're going to have to come back. That way we can have barbecue together.
Well, Austin's one of my favorite places to visit, and I know my old brother is a favorite place to visit. But you poured us a whiskey for the second half. What do you got for us?
Well, I thought we might try 2 things. The first is the cask strength version of the Musician. So, like I mentioned before, with the Musician, with our straight bourbon, we do this very slow, painstaking process of reducing the spirit. With the cask strength, we skip that step. We basically just leave it at the original flavor and at the same strength as it comes out of the cask. And so If our regular musician is kind of an acoustic, this one's a little bit more like heavy metal. It's very, very a little bit bolder in flavor. Everything kind of stands out a little bit more. It's not too much different in terms of the flavors, but the flavors really do stand out. But I'll be curious what you think.
All right, let's taste it.
All right. Cheers. Cheers. Yeah, now we know how to do it. Oh. Yeah.
Maybe that's my problem.
Yes. It can be a problem if you clink with your right hand.
Everything's better at cask strength, I always say. It's beautiful nose on there. That honey's coming out.
Yes.
There's something else is there. That it's a dark pepper, like almost a black pepper spice in there.
I get a lot of baking spices as well as cherry, like a little dark cherry in there.
Yeah, I could get that. Well, let's taste this thing.
This reminds me of candy.
That's got that pop rocks on the tongue right there.
A little bit, yeah.
Little bit of pop, right?
Yeah, well, obviously, I mean, it's at 118 proof, so it's a bit higher proof.
Now I'm looking at your prices of everything. So the Naturalist is $32 for a bottle of gin.
Correct.
The Musician is $45, and we're drinking this cask strength at $60. Great price for a cask strength whiskey. Very, very beautiful price, I think, for that. That sets you right up. If you looked at some of the cask strengths from like Maker's Mark or Knob Creek, is going to run you about $60. So you guys are right on par with those guys.
We want people to enjoy whiskey. We don't want them to overpay for it, and that's one of the beautiful things about the way that we did things. We wanted Still Austin to be something that everyone can enjoy at home anytime with their friends, not just on a real special occasion.
That's amazing, I think.
Thank you.
Man, I enjoy it. Very, very tasty whiskey here, Chris. I don't know how you could change that up any different. That spice, that, like you said, those baking spices are there in that taste. A little bit of nutmeg in there, I think. Not as much of vanilla as I would have thought.
Not quite as much. And then, but you do have like kind of a full range of baking spices: cinnamon, like you mentioned, nutmeg. Maybe
a little bit of that clove in there.
Yes, and also like kind of like brown butter, and like there's a like I kind of get, like my grandmother, her kitchen, what she would bake, it always incorporated a lot of butter. We don't really eat that much butter today, but I have a lot of memories of it, and I kind of get a little bit of that brown butter in the kind of some of the darker flavors in the cask strength.
And that's the tasty notes we're always talking about, is from your childhood, right? Is you want that stuff. Very, very. I'd rather look at that and hear people say that, hey, I had this memory from my grandmother cooking with butter, and that's the taste I'm getting, than somebody looking at a wheel and be like, oh, let me figure out what I'm getting here.
I've got a really interesting story about that, and I think your listeners would probably enjoy this too, if you don't mind me saying it real quick.
Ahead.
But I was way back in the day, I taught English in the Philippines. I lived there for a summer, and while I was teaching there, my mom made chocolate chip cookies, and she sent them to me. And I mean, I've been eating, Filipino food is, primarily rice, a lot of bananas, different types. I mean, it's a tropical place, right? There hadn't been a lot of chocolate chip cookies in my diet since I've been there, and I was so excited. And she made enough that not only could I eat a bunch of them myself, but I could also share them with all my kids. And so what I did, and what happened is really, really helped me to understand whiskey. But what I did was, on Friday of the week that they arrived, when the classes were finished, I set it out on a table where kids could come and get a chocolate chip cookie. And I told them about what it is. They had never seen chocolate chip cookies, and they're so like, okay, this is something from America. And these kids, I was like, okay, give it a bite. And they put it in their mouth. And then I watched as about 80 high school students began spitting out chocolate chip cookies on the ground. In the dirt. They could not stand them. They were like, this to them was the most disgusting thing that they had ever tasted in their life. They had never tasted flour. They had never tasted refined sugar.
Really?
And they'd never tasted cocoa that goes into chocolate chips. They have ute there, which is a little different. Why did they hate it? They'd never tasted it before.
It's new to their palate, right?
It's their palate. And, you know, one of the things Dad and I noticed, like we started to go visit all these distilleries, there were places that we visited and we were like, well, that's really interesting. Like that was an interesting whiskey. We liked it and we thought it was interesting. And then there were some places that we went and we were like, I love this. I love it. That is great. What makes the difference? Why is one interesting and one, I love it? I think it is the one that is, I love it. There's something in it that connects deeply to our memories, not conscious, but like those layers of memories from when we were a child that make a chocolate chip cookie taste so comforting to me and so foreign to someone who's never had it. And I think that is what you get for, you know, we're here in Texas and we wanted people to love what we make. And by focusing on everything coming from our region, most often thing we hear, I love this. It's because it's the same corn that's in our Tex-Mex. It's the same.
Yeah.
It's the same things that show up that have been in our lives our whole life, and it makes for just like a really. It's subconscious, but it really elevates how you enjoy things.
You brought up Tex-Mex, and I was watching a video the other day, or a documentary about Tex-Mex and how long it's been around. Really, a lot of people have a misconception about it as a modern thing. It's really not. And down in San Antonio, right outside the Alamo, these ladies used to set up these carts, and they would serve tamales and charro beans and any really Tex-Mex chili rellenos, just some great food, street tacos and stuff. And they were called the Chili Queens. And
The
you
Chili
could just
Queens.
imagine that food and that Tex-Mex back then. And, it kind of pairs with this whiskey right here. Some great whiskey to drink with that, especially with this little kick of spice to it.
Absolutely.
That chili.
That sweet and spice.
That poblano, right? Because a poblano is, everybody's like, when I eat a poblano, a chili poblano, everybody's like, you're eating that giant pepper and it's spicy. And I was like, no, it's got a little spice to it, but it's got that sweetness of that pepper in it and stuff. And that memory right there made me think of that. And you're talking about that and the Texas culture, Tex-Mex food that I grew up with as a kid.
You see it in our barbecue too. That's what I think part of what differentiates Texas barbecue from, you know, like North Carolina and other barbecue centers of the United States is that sweet spice, sweet and spicy. That's a flavor profile Texans love.
Yeah, that brown sugar in there. Get a little brown sugar love. Well, you got one more whiskey for us before you got a jet out on us. What you got?
All right. So we have at the distillery only a series that's called our Distillery Reserve series. And the Distillery Reserve series, we do two things with it. Two challenges, I would say. The first is we challenge our distillers. They make the best possible every single day. But with the Distillery Reserve, they have carte blanche to really step it up a level. We also do the same thing with our brand and marketing team and all of our creatives that are part of our community. And with each label, we feature a different artist. So Zuzu is a local spray paint artist, and this label, each individual label was spray painted individually by Zuzu, and it kind of is an unusual label that you don't expect.
I was trying to think of an old school artist that paints like that, and I was thinking Van Gogh.
Maybe a little bit.
That's what I'm looking at, that label, and I'm like, man, that is some true art right there.
She's an amazing artist, and we've focused on many different artists through the Distillery Reserve series, but this particular release is a 100% Elbon rye whiskey that has been further aged in a cognac cask that Nancy Fraley was able to source from one of the older cognac producers in the town of Cognac. So it's
I get some dry red wine on that.
yeah, maybe. Let me see here. You mentioned red wine, and that's kind of surprising me, and I can kind of smell it a bit as well. Cognac is actually a white grape, but
maybe that oak from that.
Yeah, for sure.
I like it. Well, hey,
okay,
let's do this right
properly.
This time.
Cheers.
Look at each other, left-handed.
That's right.
I'm good because I'm left-handed myself. Hey,
yeah, that's good. That's probably been helping you all along.
I got that smart brain. Now that's different. That's a different rye right there.
Yes.
That's got Mitch said, a drying effect to it. It is dry on the back of the palate. It's got a little spice, but no Kentucky hug there. No hug, no Texas hug.
No, it's not hot.
That is that black pepper I was talking about sitting on that back of the tongue right there. That spice is like, wake up, buddy. Yeah, that's nice.
And the cognac kind of gives it a little bit of a brandy type of quality. It still has that softness. This really showcases the Elbon rye. And later this year, we will release a new flagship product that is a straight 100% rye whiskey. There's a lot of rye whiskeys out there, not a lot that are 100% rye. And so it really does stand out.
Rye is starting to come into its own again when it was the king of American spirits.
Yeah. Back from George Washington days.
We're about to see a boom in rye whiskeys where Americans are starting to enjoy it again. I wrote an article about that not too long ago about where rye started at in America in the 1650s, I think, in Massachusetts by German immigrants. And then it's kind of rise and then it's fall in American spirits as a whiskey. And now it's kind of coming back. It's people realizing, man, these things are really beautiful. And it's nice to see the different mash bills of that, either from a 95.5 or 100% rye, or, one of our favorites is a Kentucky rye where they use about 65% rye.
Sure. And
the rest corn and some malted barley in there. Chris, 4 beautiful, beautiful spirits here.
Thank you.
3 great whiskeys. An amazing little gin right there.
Thank you.
That has a great price point on it, by the way. I'm glad to see that it's not $100 a bottle. Some great artwork on each label.
Thanks to our artists. Yeah.
And you've agreed to do a giveaway for us.
Absolutely. Yes.
A bottle of your Still Austin straight bourbon whiskey. So a t-shirt and a glass for one of our listeners. What would we say we're going to do if at noontime on our Instagram post? What do they got to tell us?
You need to know the swimming hole in Austin, Texas that is clothing optional.
Yeah. Put that on our Instagram post on this. Let me know where that's at, the name of it. I think we'd really enjoy it. And you'll get a bottle of this Still Austin straight bourbon whiskey. That's an amazing giveaway. Chris, thanks for doing that for our listeners, for your fans out there. Like I said, you're a hot commodity right now.
Mike, it is an honor having you guys here. I've absolutely enjoyed it, and your personality has been the best part. I have to say, you guys are awesome. I'm very, very happy that you came to visit me, and you guys are welcome back here anytime. And anything we can do to support you guys, we support you 100%.
Where can our fans find you guys at?
StillAustin.com. If you're outside of Texas or Louisiana, that will probably be the fastest way to find a bottle of Still Austin. We can facilitate it getting to you, although we do not ship, since that is technically illegal in Texas. We do have some partners that do. And so just check out stillaustin.com if you're in Texas or Louisiana. Any of your local liquor stores will be able to help you with getting a bottle of Still Austin. And of course, we love for people to come and visit us. And so whenever you're coming to Austin for South by Southwest or Austin City Limits or just coming here for fun, swing by Still Austin Whiskey. I think you'll have a really good time. We have a lovely tasting room and whiskey garden, and our food trailer is the Bearded Baking Company, and it's 2 gay lumberjacks that love to bake, and they are really good at it. You will be surprised at how good they are at baking, and they make some really delicious brunch, so I'd highly recommend coming by for brunch on in any Saturday, any Sunday.
Well, make sure you give Still Austin a follow on Instagram, on Facebook. I don't know if you guys got a TikTok account now.
We don't have a TikTok, but we do have Instagram and Facebook, still_ATX or still ATX on Facebook. And you should be able to find all of our handles on our website.
I think you need to have a TikTok of you dancing and stuff on there. I don't know. I think that'd be pretty amazing.
I'm quite a terrible dancer, but I guess everybody is on TikTok, right?
Well, until you get some whiskey in you.
That's true. That can help.
Hopping along Texas. I don't know. Doing that step and a half, as we like to call it. Chris, man, thank you so much for letting us come in here, letting us kind of invade your home turf here in Austin, Texas. Two Texas boys walking in here drinking whiskey. That's what it's all about. This has been so much fun. I can't thank you enough. I know our listeners love a giveaway, and they'll give you a big thanks and a big follow. And we look to seeing you on down the Bourbon Road.
Sounds great. Thank you, Mike.
So listeners, you know where you can find us at. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all those social medias, Twitter, wherever you can find us. We are The Bourbon Road on all those platforms. Make sure you check us out on there. Also, you can check out our website, thebourbonroad.com. You can find our articles on there, our reviews, our swag, the Bourbon Bullshitter t-shirt. You know you want to rock one of those out when you walk into a distillery. So make sure you check that out. You can actually go on our website and send us a message on there, letting us know what distilleries you want us to visit, what whiskeys you want us to review. Make sure you do that. We'd appreciate it. The next thing I need you to do is go ahead and scroll on up, hit that check sign, that plus sign, that subscribe sign. That'll let you know we got 2 shows coming out that week. The first show is always a review of a craft whiskey like Still Austin, or our long show, which I'll have a great guest on like Chris Seals here at Still Austin, making sure you get to work and back about 30 minutes each half. Make sure you do that. Then we need you to scroll on down, hit that 5-star review, write some comments. You know what'll happen if not. I'll bring my friend, the big bad booty daddy of bourbon, with me. We'll drink some Still Austin all night. By the end of the night, you're going to leave us that 5-star review. I guarantee. We really appreciate it. But seriously, those comments, those 5 stars, get us into distilleries like Still Austin, gets great whiskey in our hands to review. We would really appreciate it. You can always reach out to us on our emails. He's Jim at the Bourbon Road. I'm Mike at the Bourbon Road. But probably the best way to reach out to us is on Instagram. You can DM us. He's JShannon63. I'm Big Bourbon Chief, and we'll see you on down the Bourbon Road.